coronavirus is impacting them, what they do, their business, and you as well. Obviously, our interest is always on South Seattle, initially our diverse community, thus the Rainier Avenue Radio, the main corridor that runs all through. Basically, the way I see it is you can get to anywhere from Rainier Avenue, but all of the points that you can hit by Rainier Avenue include all of our communities from Mount Baker to moving on southward to the Genesee area, Hillman City, Columbia City, and Rainier Beach. Um, on this show, we tell you honest and open conversation about things that are going on. We love to highlight members of our community who are doing extraordinary things. And we've been doing this since March 13th. I did not think honestly that here we would be in almost October, uh, and we would still not only potentially be in the same position with the coronavirus pandemic, but maybe staring down the barrel of things potentially getting worse. Welcome to the program. I'll start with Mr. Mike Harward. Mike, are you with us?
I am. How are you, Tony B?
Mike, under the circumstances, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You're looking good, though.
Oh, well, thank you. And also joining us, Mr. Gerald Smiley. Gerald, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's not choppy. It's not bad.
All right, you're pretty. You're coming through pretty good. A little echo, but that's okay. It's like you'll be a singer, a vocalist. You know, just a little echo behind your voice. We'll be all right with that.
Buddy, hello, buddy.
All right. Well, we're going to get started here. I want to tell you a little bit about my guests, and I'll start with, as Gerald just mentioned, he called him Woody, Mike Harward. Mike loves it here in the Pacific Northwest, and he's a new addition to the Chip In family. We're going to be talking to you about Chip In. We'll find out more about this platform and how it can help you build community capacity. Mike's been working in the nonprofits for over 4 decades. His marketing journey began as a 22-year-old living in the heart of LA, working and coaching for Magic Johnson Enterprises. Mike, welcome to the program, and look forward to hearing more about Chip In. I'm going to bring Gerald in as well. Gerald, you know I got to give you some South Seattle love. Gerald is graduated and went to Rainier Beach High School, so we're going to give you definitely some props for that. Drafted straight out of high school by the Texas organization to play Major League Baseball. And then Gerald is devoted to continuing to help his community. I can't wait to get more information from you, Gerald, about Chip In and how you got started with that. And yeah, just really looking forward to it. So I'm going to start with you, Gerald. Let's talk about Chip In. And I didn't go into a lot of detail about Chip In because the best thing to do was have it come from you and also Woody. So I mentioned that Chip In was a platform that, again, can help community raise money. And we've seen in these times that can be critical. And the concept of supporting each other as community is something that Chip In has kind of taken to another level. So let's start with the basic understanding of what Chip In is. Go ahead, Gerald.
Hey, man, thank you for that. And thanks for having us on the show today. We're totally honored and grateful for this opportunity and love what you're doing. We've had lots of conversations and want to thank you for you caring about the community and the time that you put in and the length of our conversations that we have. I know your heart, it's true and dear, but Chip In really is the most rewarding way to fund your community. And what we've aligned ourselves with is something very powerful that raises capital and funding for communities and closed communities as well. So we locked arms with a company called Doxa out of Redmond, and they're former Microsoft high-level architects that left one day and said, let's start a startup company that onboards early software idea companies. And how do we turn that into a end-to-end company, but solves pain points in the world? And how does it help community? So for us, Chip In was born March 3rd, 2018, 1:30 in the morning, literally from my subconscious mind woke up from a dream. And my experience, we used another platform in 2017 took over our alma mater at Rainier Beach High School, wanted to save the program. They were going to close it. Lack of funding, lack of turnout. And I just, the Lord spoke to me. I said, there's no way we can let this happen. There's other players. Matt Fields, he went on to play with the Kansas City Royals. Humberto Gonzalez, he went and played for the New York Mets. And Stephen Hauser, he went on and, went to college. There's a lot of guys that played baseball there, but, it gets overshadowed through football and basketball. So baseball is a very expensive sport to play, and God put it on my heart to take the program over. We called on some staff members to come help me coach, and we're blessed with the coaching staff that we put together. We used the GoFundMe platform, and the community really got behind us, Tony. It was amazing. It was pretty much a miracle, to be honest with you. And we're just super thankful. We raised $18,000 in a week. Community got behind us, not locally, but globally. And couldn't be thankful enough for what happened. We ended up raising like $42,000 in a month. And I looked at the system inside of GoFundMe, and there was a lot of loopholes, and they took a huge cut of what we wanted to raise and what we did raise. And fast forward, I wanted to raise money for Cleveland, Garfield, Nathan Hale, Ingram, West Seattle. And there was constraints put on us because I was the coach at Rainier Beach, and any money that we raised had to stay with the 12 children in our locker room. So the political constraints that were put on me, the Lord spoke to me and said, 12 kids only in your locker room is not the only calling on your life. You're doing a good job, and your staff is doing a good job with these 12 men, but there's something bigger out there. And I didn't know what it was until I woke up from that dream, and I said, aha, I got it. And our system validates where the contributors' money goes. It validates organizations, beneficiaries of the funding. And it's a very unique way as we continue to build our features out that engage the community. And we have a B2C model in our system, business to consumer, where businesses can also send offers and reward people who chip in. Our job is to recycle this money into our communities and reward those who give to other people who need help. So
I'm going to stop you right there for a second, Gerald, because I want you to go back to, you said people who chip in. Let's talk about that for a second before you go on here and explain what that means, the concept of chip in.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I think everyone can chip in just a little bit. It doesn't have to be 500. It doesn't have to be 700. It could be micro payments of $1, $2, $3, and give people a sense of honor, a sense of pleasure that they helped contribute to their community, even if it was $1, even if it was $2. When we continue to roll our features out, you're going to see something amazing that hasn't been done before with our closed networks. We're talking on a city level, we're talking on a county level, a statewide level, a nationwide level, and a global level. But you as a citizen in society can have an opportunity for us to help you. And our board of directors, our advisors, our investors, we're just thankful for our team that's behind this and bringing our idea to Doxa. Doxa, really what they do, and anyone who's listening to this, if you have really cool ideas that you want to start a software company, I highly recommend that you reach out to them. It's Doxa, DOXXA.io. But they extract what's out of your brain, and their job is to see if they can put code around that and help you bring your idea to real life. And then that's where one of our directors, really sat down and said, hey, look, there's somebody else that I want you to meet, because we're starting our Chip In Foundation, and anyone in the community who's in need of things will be able to come to our platform when we release these features, and we're going to be able to help them. And that's when they introduced me to Michael Harward, and phenomenal background, named him our executive director of our foundation. And our job is to support the community, and people who support community, that's when we reward them. So right now, just so you know and everyone else knows, businesses who want to drive business sales and want a new sales channel, we're not charging people to send offers or discounts or promotions or product or merchandise to reward people who give, even on a micro payment level. Our job is to help small businesses and big businesses.
All right. I'm going to bring Woody in here for a second. Thanks for joining us on the program. I talked a little bit about your background, but let me hear from you. 4 decades in working with nonprofits. Why is that the course that you have taken over the majority of your life?
Well, I grew up as a young guy in Bellingham, Washington, and didn't have a whole lot. My mom was a single mom, and my entire life, she worked 2 jobs to make sure we made it. And I know there's a lot of families out there that are doing that. And so my heart has always been full with God's hand pushing me toward helping other people. And sometimes it's been very, very successful. Sometimes it's not been so successful, but we keep trying. I had a great opportunity to start out working with Irvin Johnson, with Magic Johnson of the Los Angeles Lakers in the early 80s. And Irvin taught me a lot of grassroots. He loves grassroots, and that's what I see Chip In doing. Gerald is a grassroots guy. That Rainier Beach program, Tony, your radio shows the things that you do for the community. Gerald's the same way. And I felt his heart and his love for his community. And that's what really wanted me to be a part of what Chip In is doing. It's kind of weird because there's not many positive things that have happened because of COVID. But this program, the launching of what we're going to do is really been a blessing from God because of what happened with COVID. There's people out there that need a lot of help, Tony, and you know that. And that's why we're here, is to figure out how we can help your listeners, as well as continue to help that Rainier area, Seattle. We're not going to just be a Seattle group. We love Seattle, but we're gonna go nationwide and help nationwide. And our arms are going to be large, and we're going to hug a lot of people.
I'm going to give a shout out to Bellingham. I just spoke with some folks from, I think it's called KFAX Radio. Does that sound familiar to you, Mike? It's a LPF.
Yeah, you bet.
LPFM up there, and they're going to be partnering with us and joining us for our statewide effort to engage folks with the electoral process and have them share the needs of their communities. And KFAX agreed to partner with us, and they're going to be sharing our debates and taking some of our programming and working with us as we educate some of the young folks up there about the importance of voting and all that. So I just had to get in a shout out there to Bellingham, since you said you were from Bellingham. But let's talk about your engagement, Mike, with Chip In. From your perspective, how do you see Chip In being a benefit to the community? We'll start with the community, first of all.
Well, the community is kind of where we're based, right? I mean, grassroots to me means local businesses, local food banks, local schools. A lot of dollars go to big organizations, and grassroots local groups don't see a lot of that money that comes into a major program. With what Chip In is going to do, with what we're going to do, we're going to give that money back to those local groups. And I'll just go back to Rainier Beach. I mean, exactly where Gerald went to start and plant that seed, that's the groups that we're going to touch. It might be Bellingham High School. It might be some other local program. We're on the process right now, and we won't give it all away yet, but we're on the process right now of working with some local food banks that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and helping millions of people that are hurt right now, that need help. And we're going to help by doing that. And like Gerald said, a lot of people feel like, man, I got to make a donation. I got to really dip into my savings account. I can't do that right now. I'm hurting. We don't need your savings account. What we need is $1. We need $1. And I know that most of your listeners, even though we're going through tough times, you're still spending more than $1 on a cup of coffee. And I know that your listeners, because I know what kind of guy you've been for decades, Tony, and they love their community. And I want to see that. I want to see that love come into what what we're doing with Chip In. And then by taking that dollar, we're able to put that dollar back in the community, not 98 cents, not 90 cents, but we're putting a dollar back in that community. We're helping that community. And by doing that, we're also helping those who help the community by being able to give them the opportunity to be able to maybe win some prizes, maybe get some free giveaways, maybe do some things that are a little different than some of the other things that you've seen on other platforms, because this platform is totally 100% different than anything I've seen out there. And I've looked at a lot of different platforms to help, and it can be the smallest groups. It can be, a quilting bee, that a group of women that are quilting every week, and they can't do that anymore, and they need a little help. They can apply to be helped with our program. Or it can be the biggest of programs. It could be the harvest group that's raising money for the food bank. We can help those as well. That's what we want to do. We've got some really cool ideas that we're trying to put forth some efforts. My mom was a big layaway mom. She really had to stock some money away to be able to take care of us during Christmas. And what we want to do at Chip In is we want to be able to help those moms and dads and people that are out there that are laying stuff away. We're trying to put together a program. And Tony, I know you've got a ton of good ideas, and I'm willing to listen to every idea that you have, because that's part of our outreach as well, is listening to our community leaders to figure out what's best for the community. A lot of times people don't listen. We're going to be a big listening group.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. It's our special that we do this every Friday program from 1 to 3, where we talk about the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. My guest, Mike Harward. Did I get that right? Is it Harward?
You did.
All
yeah.
right.
Harward, yeah.
And AKA Woody. And then South Seattle's from Bellingham, by the way. And then also South Seattle's own Gerald Smiley, the owner, the founder, the creator of Chip In. Gerald, let's break this down here for folks who are listening and saying, okay, well, this sounds like a good. I'm still just not sure exactly how this works, how this engages. I kind of get the idea. Let's take this from point A, Gerald, and explain to folks how the concept of Chip In can work, either as being the funder itself or as you chip in to someone else's fund.
Amen. And great point there. We just launched, we have 15 fundraisers on our platform right now, and we just launched one that's really, they're all dear to my heart, but we're going to see the Renton community really get behind each other to save the local businesses there. And we met with the CEO of the Renton Chamber of Commerce, Diane Dobson, and we had coffee with her, and we were just strategically thinking about, how can we help the community? You see these federal grants drying up during COVID and outside of COVID, and budget cuts everywhere. And this is not a bash on the government, but we as the people are the community. We are the community. So how do we help each other in the community? So long story short, part of that dream that I woke up from was, how can people just chip in 1 hour of their pay? When I looked at the $42,000 raised for Rainier Beach, everyone chipped in a certain amount, and they only did it one time. And we still came up with 42 in a month. So if you gave us 12 months as a community, what can we put together if we chipped in just 1 hour of our pay? And recycling that money back into the community as you look at in the COVID time, and we're talking about impacts of COVID, this Renton Stronger Together project, literally, if there's 104,000 residents in Renton, if we took 50,000 and could catch 50,000 residents who chipped in just $13.50, which is our state minimum wage, we can, as a community, we can come up with our own publicly funded grant for those businesses and generate $675,000. And as a community, we can help keep these businesses alive. And my mission and vision, when I woke up from this dream and shared it with our team, was we can do this. And anyone that we say just chip in 1 hour of your pay, no matter how much you make, you don't really have to explain what that portion means. It speaks to your heart and mind. And if that is too much, can each state just do their minimum wage and help business in the community, but help people in the community? So when we talk about when you chip in, we're going to continue to onboard businesses and allow them to send promotional codes or discounts and get people to come in and shop with them. Like, let's say Ezell's, if I chip in to any pot and Ezell's wants to send 20% off discount to people who chip in, our system can help support those businesses. If they say whoever chips in $50 or more can receive 20% off their entree, or $10 and I'll give you a free dessert. We let businesses control their own offers to drive business into their businesses by saying, thank you for keeping us alive, for one, during COVID, but also out of COVID. How do we create another sales channel and just recycle the money in the community? So chip in, literally, it's an incentivized giving platform, and we reward you to do so. As Woody mentioned earlier, we have some pretty incredible things in the pipeline, and some of the people that we're going to continue to launch with, that we're creating things on the back end, people will start to really see the huge ripple effect of what we can do for the community. But we just call on all your listeners, and no matter where you're listening, $1 can go a long way. And like Woody said, it's not 60 cents, not 90 cents. Your dollar is going to go back into the community. And we just ask people who care about other people to have a vision of remembering when we leave this community one day, when our expiration date on earth hits us, our children are still behind us. And how do we create a system that will be here 100 years from now through technology, through a community effort that can help everybody, not just now, but later? That was our vision.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. Thanks for joining us on our multiple platforms that we have. If you're listening to us streaming, or if you're watching us on our Facebook feed, or if you're listening to us on one of our AM/FM platforms, we're talking about Chip In. My guest, Mike Harward, a.k.a. Woody, and Gerald Smiley, the creator, talking about the dream that he had that led to the creation of Chip In. Now, folks may be saying, Chip In, okay, I'm not familiar with it. I haven't heard about it. Sounds like a good idea. We need to kick this information out there. How can folks find out more about what Chip In is, find out about what's available to support on Chip In?
Love that. And thank you for that opportunity. Our website is chip-in.co, chip-in.co. And they can reach me through my email also at gsmiley@chip-in.co. And I'm available by phone. So I'm going to give people my cell phone number. I have no problem with that. 206-890-8219. Anybody looking to start a fundraiser or be an influencer in your community, please reach out to me. We would love to lock arms. Our team is looking for individuals who have the right heart in place and care about other people, not just say they do, but actually do it. And it's funny, we were on your show last night. I called in, Tony, and spoke with Pat McCarthy. And we love what, certain people in leadership positions do. And certain people aren't just there for a paycheck and wait till retirement. People go the extra mile, and we're looking for people who really do the work versus just say they want to start an organization or nonprofit to help kids just to make some money off of it. We want to lock arms with people who actually care, and we can see that too. Our platform will be available for anyone in our community eventually to throw up their own. But right now we're onboarding early organizations and community groups and designing their platforms and their branding for them, which is also powerful. And you look at GoFundMe, you look at a PayPal or anywhere else, you don't have user profiles, you don't have accounts. You're going to be able to eventually to wake up one day and see other businesses, what they have to help in the community, and make that ask to those businesses that are going to validate to the companies that their money actually went where they said it was supposed to go to in the community, and then vice versa. Your company right now and brands, you'll be able to pick any fundraiser on our platform that speaks to your heart and support that, whether it's financially, whether it's with merchandise, whether it's with gift cards, coupons, you name it. We're we're allowing businesses to align their brands with other brands in the organization that they want to help to, and do it through a digital model. You look at fundraising right now, you know how hard it is to door knock somebody and ask them for auction items for their raffle or fundraiser. We're going to bring this to the digital space and connect partners to sponsors, you name it. We're going to take everything to the digital space, make everyone's life easy through fundraising. And we're going to put the cool, sexy fun back into fundraising, and not take a look at a lot of dwindling fundraisers with not a lot of engagement.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to sneak this in here because we're almost out of time, and I want to give you a chance for both of you a chance for final words. But one of the things that we realized when the pandemic hit, when our normal business shut down, but we could not abandon our community. So it got busier here than before the pandemic. Our broadcasts were more, our community had more needs, we had more information to provide to our community. So we were working harder and making less, and had no time to fundraise because we were doing what we're doing. Then we did try to get into that effort. So I'm just saying right now, folks, Rainier Avenue Radio is going to become part of the Chip In family. So if you've been looking for a way to support independent media, to support this grassroots media organization and the work that we do within the community, unashamedly, we can use your support, and happy about that. We're going to be part of the Chip In family. I'm going to have about
Amen.
a minute left. So I'm going to only be able to give you guys about 30 seconds apiece, but I do want to give you the opportunity here for final words. So Woody, I'm going to start with you. If you can represent Bellingham if you want to as well in your final statement.
Hey, I just want to thank you, Tony, for what you've done. I've listened to you for years, and you are fabulous. I loved you forever. I love you now, and I appreciate you and your listeners. And if you have a need, if you need something, go through Tony. Tony, you get a hold of us, and we're going to try to do what we can to help your community right there in that area.
Thank you, Woody. And Gerald, again, pleasure, my man. I want to give you the opportunity. It's going to have to be kind of quick here, but I want to definitely give you the opportunity for final words as well, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I echo Woody, man. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the opportunity. But first and foremost, you're not just your brand, but your efforts that you give into the community. We look forward to our partnership with Rainier Avenue Radio and bringing our resources and connections to the community for you as well. And just in allowing our platform to leverage your goals and your ideas to help maximize your efforts in the community. And we ask that the people in the community, you visit chip-in.co, keep your eye on it. Our user experience and new features will continue to roll out. And we can assure you that we won't let you down. We're working hard, and DOPS is working hard behind the scenes, our team, to bring what you need and bring level of support. It wasn't just thought of in COVID. The stop came in 2018. Mm-hmm. It just helps us help you even further during COVID. But Tony, again, man, God bless you. Thank you. Don't let anybody do it today, tomorrow, nor ever. And listeners, please continue to tune in. Tony's got some phenomenal things that he's working on that he's going to be releasing to the community. So make sure you stay in touch.
All right. We've got Juan Cotto coming up next. Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio from 1 to 3 on Fridays. We tell you about the impact of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. And again, it goes just a number of different ways that this has impacted our community. Juan's going to be coming up here next. He'll be talking about mental health, K through 12. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Juan Cotto, again, your host for the next half an hour. And then Mr. Daniel Bellis, who you hear on Fresh Juice, will be also having a conversation regarding the coronavirus. Again, special thanks to my guests from Chip In, Mike Harward and Gerald Smiley. Will be back right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not driving my sweet AMC Pacer through the car wash, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. You missed a spot.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week we explore this heart condition of the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Earlier today, the federal government announced an outline of their plan on how to make COVID-19 vaccines available for free to all Americans. According to the Associated Press, federal health agencies and the Defense Department are aiming to start to roll out a vaccination campaign, potentially beginning late this year or in January 2021. Dr. Robert Redfield, director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said in a statement to Congress that any version of a vaccine available late this year would be in, quote, very limited supply, unquote. He estimates that a vaccine will not be available until summer or fall of 2021. Within the federal government's outlined plan, most COVID-19 vaccines will need to be taken in 2 doses, taken 21 to 28 days apart. Although these double-dose vaccines will have to come from the same manufacturer, there could be several vaccines approved and available.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.world community update on education companies offering free subscriptions due to school closings. You can access a list of over 1,000 free education resources at www.amazingeducationalresources.com and also join the Amazing Educational Resources Facebook group.
Your sexual and reproductive health care can't wait. Not now, not ever. Planned Parenthood is here with you to provide you the quality care you need from the experts you trust. Call or visit us online to book your appointment today.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not stopping a Mercer Island street brawl, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Good afternoon. This is Juan Cotto, and I am a broadcaster here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station, and our regular Friday series, Impacts of the Coronavirus. And today we have Margaret Carey. She is a child psychologist, and she is at the King County Department of Community and Human Services. She also co-chairs the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Family Committee and the Resource Group for Youth at the Borders. So I wanted to welcome you to Rainier Avenue Radio today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for being on our community radio station. Tell us about your role and what you do at the King County Department of Community and Human Services.
Well, as you mentioned, I am the child and adolescent psychiatrist at King County, and my role at King County there is a policy role. And so I am a thought partner with many of our initiatives across the country to advocate for the well-being of families, youth, and young people, and particularly advocating for their emotional health and well-being.
Tell us about what has been the impact of COVID-19 on community mental health.
Well, I think that one of the biggest recognitions of COVID-19 is that it has exacerbated stresses that were pre-existing within our community, and it has just added one more layer of stress. And the impacts of COVID-19 have varied over the course of this pandemic, as they can with many pandemics. Is in the early stages of the pandemic, when we were just starting to learn about it, community members rallied and they rooted into their strength and their resilience. They came together, and I think we all just dug in to get through it. This is hard and it's long. And so as this has worn on, as we've had to carry more and more uncertainty about how it will impact our finances, our schools, our plans, our caregiving, what we will have resources for, what our family members and our community members are holding on to, along with the grief and the distance, not being able to hug people, not being able to gather, all of those things, not being able to do all of those things that we had become accustomed to relieve our stress, to experience joy, to take care of ourselves, across all aspects of our life, from our spirituality to how we celebrate, how we go through holidays. This has worn on all of us, and what we have seen from surveys that have been done across the state and here locally in the King County region is that increasingly people are reporting feeling anxious, worried, uncertain, depressed, stressed in general. And that's a big deal, particularly for individuals who are coming into this pandemic already holding a lot.
I am Juan Cotto, and I'm a regular voice here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. You've probably seen me broadcast high school football games, telling the stories of kids in our community. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to tell those stories this fall because of the absence of sports and so forth. But I'm here with Margaret Carey, and she is a child psychologist, and she is with the King County Department of Community and Human Services. Margaret, tell us about the types of services that are available from King County Department of Health for mental health.
So our behavioral health system, which King County partners with, is doing incredibly innovative things to increase access to behavioral health services for individuals who want to engage in what I'd call the formal behavioral health services, or traditional behavioral, probably actually not traditional behavioral health services. We know that people have been taking care of their emotional health in a lot of different ways, but organizations have figured out how to make telehealth accessible. They figured out how to partner with organizations and with communities to give laptops available to agencies and families so that they can access telehealth. A lot of what we have seen that was necessary in the early stages of the pandemic is that clinics closed to in-person care in service of reducing infection risk. And so a lot of the services and supports and treatment that people had been receiving, youth, adults, which had been in person, had to switch to telehealth. And so there's been a whole lot of work. And we know that some people who had never accessed behavioral health services before have now been able to access them because you don't need to drive all over town to reach them. And in a way, the resources have been more available to some people. For other people, unfortunately, we know it's been harder because of lack of internet access, or lack of ability to find a safe place where they could really talk about what was going on because of their living circumstances or whatnot. So in addition to bolstering and innovating across the kind of formal behavioral health system, there's been also a whole lot of work to increase the word and talk about our emotional health and well-being, how we're doing outside of that, just around community. There have been surveys that have gone on. A group of youth connected with the Reconnect Opportunity Program did a survey of youth predominantly in South King County, just checking in about the impacts of COVID on their mental health as well as academic and other goals in their life. Another group of students out in Skyline did a similar survey. I think other organizations are reaching out to their community members. We're increasing something called mental health first aid, which is kind of like CPR, except for folks who are in emotional or behavioral health crises. And it is a way to increase awareness, reduce stigma, and increase the capacity and competency of us community members to act and support when we see somebody we know, or somebody maybe that is a community member that we don't know as well, and just check in and make sure that folks have access to the services they need. So I think that King County is working on both formal and informal ways to increase behavioral health supports. We've also done some mental health fairs in partnership with NAACP of King County and Disability Rights Washington, again, to get information out to communities to know that you're not alone. There are reasons to be stressed. There are reasons to be distressed right now. It's not obviously a failure or a weakness, but these are hard times. And so let's talk about it and support each other.
Is there still a stigma attached to mental health and conversations about mental health in our society?
Well, as a clinician, as somebody who's obviously likes work and passion is this, absolutely. And I think it differs in different groups, and I really commend a lot of groups of people, and young people in particular, for speaking up about it. And I think having courage to enter these conversations with extreme bravery, and they are, as youth always are, models and inspirations for us older folks. But I think stigma varies differently across generations and across different communities.
You are with Juan Cotto, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station, our community radio station. I have Margaret Carey, who is a child psychologist, and she is with the King County Department of Community and Human Services. And she's talking about different programs available in regards to this whole COVID-19 and impacts of the coronavirus and impacts of the coronavirus on mental health. Margaret, youth suicide rates in the United States are on the rise. They've been on the rise for a while. What are some of the factors leading to this trend?
I think that is something on everybody's mind, and not only are they on the rise nationally, but they're on the rise here in King County. There's been an 80% increase in youth suicide over the last 10 years. This is heartbreaking. This is tragic, and this is hugely problematic. And people are really trying to figure out the reasons why, and we're trying to figure out locally the reasons why. And there are, not surprisingly, a whole lot of factors. Some of the factors I think that people are concerned about is general stress and awareness. I think people are concerned about the impacts of racism, white supremacy, the political system, climate change. People are concerned about kind of the pluses and the minuses of social media. Social media and internet connection has increased connectivity of youth around the world in ways that have helped youth build communities in incredibly positive ways and help youth rally to advocate. At the same time, bullying and cyberbullying can now happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not just limited to when you're at school. And I think that parents are working a lot, caregivers are working a lot. And so some of the connections that families have been able to have with their kids is been more strained.
How well do we understand the behavior in youth which signals suicide risk?
We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And to be quite honest, the research really lacks in what are the most predictive factors that will help us know when somebody is feeling distressed, or somebody may be thinking that their life isn't worth living, or that their life is too much to bear. And those factors that will predict who is going to act on those thoughts. What we know is that suicide is oftentimes an extreme solution to feeling extreme distress, but it is but one solution. And so as we help engage youth in thinking about other solutions to handle their distress, we can help increase the options that they feel that they have. There are a lot of gaps in suicide research. And frankly, there's a lot of gaps when we start looking deeper into cultural factors that impact suicide. And I think that's where this field really is aiming to go. You know, at the same time, there's definitely some warning signs that we know about. When youth start isolating, when youth start doing things that are very uncharacteristic, not hanging out with friends, having trouble engaging in the activities that they used to love, losing their joy, not laughing, not joking, these things that are typical, frankly, of all youth. And I think oftentimes we see that. And the other thing that I hear over and over and over again from families, as I still have a clinical practice and I do a lot of clinical work in community, is families and loved ones often say, I had no idea that this was coming. And so as well as we know the young people in our lives, youth are also incredibly skilled at putting on masks. And I think that this raises the importance of asking, and not being afraid to ask about suicide. We know what we know very well about the research is asking about suicide doesn't put the ideas into their heads. It actually helps them feel understood.
Like you said about masks, there's a lot of adults that can do that too as well. Juan Cotto and Margaret Carey, a child psychologist who is at the King County Department of Community and Human Services, on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Happy Friday. Impacts of the coronavirus. And you touched on it a little bit. Race and socioeconomic status. Tell us about the factors that we're seeing in regards to mental health in the lower income and also communities of color.
Absolutely. So not surprisingly, the more that we have to hold and the more we have to bear, the more stressed we are. And we know that communities and families that are dealing with more financial insecurity and economic insecurity are holding a lot more stress. We know that families and individuals that are most impacted by racism and white supremacy are holding on to daily stresses. And so you add the uncertainty of COVID and all of its ramifications for the disruptions to our lives and our routines and our resources and our outlets. We are seeing quite clearly in our local data how that is manifesting in increased anxiety and depression. So for example, at this point, about 40% of adults in the Seattle, Bellevue, and Tacoma metropolitan areas are reporting feeling anxious most days of the week. But almost 50% of the multiracial respondents are reporting feeling anxious. About 30% of the adults in the same region are reporting feeling depressed more days than not. And almost 50% of the Black and African American respondents are reporting feeling depressed. Also, again, those, as you mentioned, those who have more financial insecurity, those who have lost jobs or anticipate losing jobs, those who have less formal education, those who are living alone, those who are feeling more lonely and isolated, have higher rates of depression and anxiety, which then just is another factor to contend with everything else that we and they are juggling.
Margaret, how can we, as adults, and I have two children, but as parents and guardians and folks who are taking care of kids and taking care of ourselves with stresses
Right.
that we have in regards to finances and so forth, how can we take care of ourselves and our children in such an extraordinary time?
There are three general takeaways from the research and the science and the observations from across the world and from across time and from across cultures about some of the core ways that we can take care of ourselves. And this obviously is grounded in one, we don't need another to-do list. We all, as you clearly outlined, have far too many to-do lists. And those of us who are parents and trying to work are now having to be teachers as well. And thank heavens for the teachers. They are struggling and rising to this occasion with aplomb. But part of these takeaways are we don't need another to-do list. Don't do things that are going to increase your stress. Do things that are going to help decrease and help ground and root and calm you. The second thing is that self-care is not all up to the individual. Self-care is really on our systems and our communities, right? Healing exists in our communities and in our families. And so we also really need to rally, not sort of in this notion of what do I need to do as an individual, but push back on our systems and our institutions and our communities to create the spaces to help us do these three things. One is check into ourselves and check into others. We can't really address what's going on until we accurately and authentically define what it is. So again, how am I really feeling? Check into the others, check in with others that we love. Ask about suicidal ideation. If we don't know, we can't do anything about it. The second thing is to connect with ourselves, connect with others, but also to connect with our values, our purpose, our reasons why, our faith, our gratitude, our joy. And as we build those muscles, just like any coach, as you build your optimism and your excitement, it will be easier to draw on and act from those places. So in addition to checking in with yourself and others, connecting to others, reaching out, giving help, giving resources, giving support, connecting with your values and your purpose, the last is to take care. Take care of your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions, and your people, your community, your family. Sleep, I can't overestimate how important sleep is. And I appreciate that the more stressed we are, the harder it is. So as you can and be kind, try to get sleep. Be outside. I think all of us are grateful for the rain after all of the smoke. So enjoy it because we got it right now. Move your body, exercise, dance, stretch, eat healthfully as you can. And then stick to routines that are helpful for you. Those routines can really provide organization, calm, predictability in these unpredictable times.
You're listening to Juan Cotto and Margaret Carey. She's a child psychologist for the King County Department of Community and Human Services, and just creates some great ideas in terms of taking care of oneself during this extraordinary period. We're on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our Friday afternoon special called Impacts of the Coronavirus. Let me ask you this question: with schools just starting up within the last month, what have been the impacts of schools on the children, and how? And you mentioned a little bit in regards to the online classes and the lack of connection with your students and your friends, and also how are the teachers? We heard the reports of how the teachers are adapting to this whole new environment.
Absolutely. Such a big and broad question. And I would like to first give respect and a shout out to the Opportunity Youth COVID-19 survey that was co-sponsored by CCER and the Community Center for Education Results, King County, and SOAR, who again surveyed over 200 young people throughout King County about the impacts of COVID-19. And they have some really interesting results about the impact not only on our mental health, but also on school and online study. And one of the things that was a real takeaway for me was the youth calling out that online learning works a lot better if you have a relationship with your teacher. We know that learning happens in the context of trusted relationships. And I think that this is something that families and teachers and school staff and school counselors are all highly concerned about, because it's so much harder to form that relationship online. And so that is one of the major impacts, is how do we really build that relationship and that trust and that sense of connection that allows our brains and our bodies to be calm enough to absorb information, but also allows the adults in our lives who care about us to check in and notice when something's going on. And I think that that's something that's giving, from what I've heard from colleagues at Puget Sound Educational Service District, that's something that's giving school staff and teachers a lot of stress, is how do I support these students? How do I totally change my teaching? How do I ensure that students are engaged and motivated and excited about learning in this dynamic that is more distant? Parents are also raising the same question. How do I support engagement? How do I support engagement and motivation and participation in my student when I don't necessarily understand the online tools? And I can say, as a parent of a kindergartner, I'm overwhelmed with the number of new applications I have to learn. And, I fancy myself as knowing a thing or two about computers, right? And so I think that this is a hard time, and the information that we're getting from everyone, from schools, from students, is the importance of rooting first into our relationships, of taking the time to connect and ask how we're doing, and starting the day and starting the conversations with that trust and that humanity.
What are some of the resources that are available that someone who's listening to this, where can they go? What can they tap into if they notice a child that is struggling, if they notice an adult that is struggling? What types of resources are available?
So first, I want to make sure that folks know about Crisis Connections and 211. 211 can help us with a whole list of resources and assistance, recognizing that sometimes our stress is coming from because we're not sure if we're going to be able to pay our internet bill so that our kids can stay in school next week. And so call 211 or visit, I think it's win211.org, or Crisis Connections, 866-4-CRISIS, 866-4-CRISIS, or crisisconnections.org. Those services will help connect you if you're having a crisis, help talk you through that. There's a texting service available for both youth and for adults. There's a teen link for youth who can reach out and talk to other youth. They'll also help connect you to behavioral health resources, even if you're not in crisis right now, but you recognize that you're starting to feel overwhelmed. And we certainly recommend that people reach out earlier. Our kingcounty.gov/COVID/support has a list of mental health resources, including the link to the Washington Counselors of Color Network, recognizing that being able to the trust in the relationship that you have with your therapist is one of the biggest factors in the effectiveness of therapy. And so good relationship is good medicine, and that's sort of where we need to start.
You are with Juan Cotto and Margaret Carey, who is a child psychologist for the King County Department of Community and Human Services, on your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Margaret, and it's such a heavy topic, it's such a challenging topic, but you said something earlier, and I marvel at the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, and just how optimistic he is. And so in our last couple of minutes, as we've had this heavy conversation about such a heavy topic, but how can we infuse that optimism? What are the things that we have to look for? What's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for people to look for, to keep their minds free and optimistic as we move forward in this extraordinary circumstance?
Thank you so much for that question, because I think not only is tapping into our optimism, our hope, our plans for the future essential to healing, but it's also essential to what's going to make this a better world. Yes, this is an incredibly hard time, and the disruptions that COVID has caused are also opening up our eyes to innovations and possibilities. And I think we're starting to look into how can we do more online connection, be it behavioral healthcare connection. There's so many more forums that are being stood up right now to support and link people, not only around the region, but across the country and across the world. The racial uprisings that are going right now, may these create a more fair and just and frankly healthy world. And I think as hard and as painful as they are, we have the opportunity in a system that is disrupted to start to really build new and better foundations. I think because so many of us are impacted, frankly, all of us are stressed. I have yet to meet anybody who is not stressed right now for a variety of reasons. Many of us are holding much bigger loads and are disproportionately holding stress, but this means that we're talking more about how we're feeling. And I think that's one of the most key ways to break down stigma is to talk about it. And so I am hopeful that that while it is hard, and I'm obviously upset that we are stressed, that the conversations and the ability that that are being born out of this time to reach out to each other is going to help us get to know each other better, and to better identify and respond to stress in ways that will promote our lifelong health going forward.